anybody at any time that has a question, shout it out, put your hand up, join the conversation. So I will kick it off. So Dan, your background is in media and the internet, and wildly successful executive, and then 4 years ago you went into education technology. Tony made the reference as one of Always On's top 10 trends today, but 4 years ago, maybe not as obvious. So what did you see then, and why did you jump in, and was it as exciting as you hoped it would be?
It's very different than I thought it was going to be. As Mike referenced, I grew up in magazine publishing, computer magazine publishing. Looks like some of you are old enough to have read PC Magazine and all those publications. Those are the ones that I used to run, and I got very involved in the internet around 1996, 1997 when I met the guys from Yahoo. I got fascinated, always interested in what technology can do, not how to build it, that's for other people, but what its impact could be on people, business, society. So I grew up, got more directly into the internet space, as you know. And then the opportunity for Chegg came by, and I sort of was reluctant to take it because it really was just a print textbook rental company, and that's all it did, that's all it could do 4 years ago. But very coincidental, and full disclosure, Mike and I know each other, and my daughters went to high school together, so I actually asked Mike for advice on this. But coincidental to the opportunity was the timing, which is my oldest daughter was a junior, starting to look at colleges, my younger daughter was a freshman, and I started going through the process and realized it was as broken as it was when we all went. In fact, almost nothing has changed. You still have to send in your applications 5-6 months in advance. The costs are too high. There's fragmented information. You don't really know how to build a list. It was very complicated, even for people who have resources to go and do it. And so that really got me interested in saying, with the background that I've had, could I actually do something about it? And so I joined Chegg, as you mentioned, about 4 years ago. And all we did is rent textbooks. And what we sort of set out to do was mirror what's happening in the education space, which is, it's an old format. It hasn't changed for 200 years. I mean, probably the epiphany for me was when I was on college tours, took my older daughter to the University of Virginia, which I love. Thomas Jefferson built it, all the American history that you could possibly get. And they give you the tour, and they stand you right before the rotunda, and they say, 200 years ago, students lived in these rooms. They have no water, they have no showers, and now the best and the brightest live in these rooms, and they still have no water and no showers. And I was like, first of all, they're not very smart kids, because walking out here in the winter to go find a bathroom is not what I want my daughter to do. But more importantly, it became obvious to me that the format of education had not changed. It's still lecture-based. It's still one size fits all. It's still not everybody can get into the classroom. Everybody needs to learn the same way at the same time. And Chegg became compelling for me because it was white space. No one had really done anything in education since Blackboard had gone public, however many years ago, and it was taken private eventually. And the thought of being able to help hard-working families save money, save time, and get smart about education, so I jumped in. I had no idea it was going to be this complicated or this big.
Yeah. Well, when you look at some of the different changes that have gone on, and I do think we are at an inflection point. The old education model, which has shown in college anyway, you've had cost grow 3 times that of inflation, $1.2 trillion in student debt, yet at the same time, for people to participate in the future, they need to get more knowledge, they need to get more education. They're going to have to rethink the model, I believe. Yeah. And I believe that one of the places we reference is look at the media business and how they've been able to create very expensive content, but through reaching millions and tens of millions of people, able to make it accessible and create successful, valuable businesses. I mean, do you see an analog that you see in terms of where this industry could go, where it is now, and looking at some other industries?
Yeah, look, the interesting thing is we don't often think of education as an industry, but it is. And so the amazing thing is we've been ripping off American families, taxpayers, and students for hundreds of years now, because you may not know some of the statistics. 80% of all higher education students go to a state school, which are generally funded by the taxpayer. Second, less than 50% of them graduate. As you mentioned, they have $1.2 trillion in debt. There are 8 million Americans over 40 that still carry college debt. And you may not know this, but college debt is the only debt you can't declare bankruptcy on. For the rest of your life, you carry that. That was part of No Child Left Behind. And I think the concept of No Child Left Behind was no child can possibly get ahead. So everybody's backwards. So you've got a broken system. The publishers would sell to professors and force you to buy a textbook. There's the 50th edition of the books we read, where all they changed was the edition number, right? So they could sell new books. So it's been a ripoff, sort of across the board. So it depends on where you are in the ecosystem. So one of the greatest turnarounds that I've seen in the media business, if you talk about the traditional media business, is, do you remember when Viacom and CBS split? And Viacom was going to be the growth engine, and CBS was going to be the stub, the non-growth engine. And now we never hear about Viacom. And CBS has become this huge growth company in the media business and in the content business. And the smallest line of their revenue is actually what was 100% of their revenue back 5-7 years ago, which was network advertising. Now they've become a true content creator and distributor. They distribute it on their own networks, and they distribute it on other people's networks, and along comes Netflix, and along comes Hulu, and along comes iTunes, right? And now in the music business, along comes Spotify and Pandora and Beats. So what's happening is the media business, and I agree with you, it'll be a lot like the education, what education could do. The media business has grasped the power of technology. So we live in a world now of multiple screens. We all use multiple screens. We all carry multiple screens. Students do the exact same thing, in fact, more so. So in a world where there's more screens, more availability of content, the internet, people will consume more, not less. Netflix has proven that, right? Another example of a media model, which is a lot of what Chegg wants to create.
$9.99 a month, and you can get all you can eat.
Well, people say, is it on Netflix? As if Netflix is like, is it on CBS? Right? And nobody knows the brand CBS, everybody knows the brand Netflix. And if you've got kids like mine, they don't even know what cable companies are, right? And I feel fortunate for them that they don't. So let's take it all the way to like 10 years from now. So what's happening? So content has become more ubiquitous. It's become more available. It's consumed more. It's consumed how somebody wants to consume it. There isn't any programming time, right? Remember there was must-see TV on Thursday nights when we all watched Cheers? I'm looking out there. You're old enough to remember what I'm saying. So you've got a situation now where now you can do your own cue in music. You can do your own cue in videos, right? Rent the Runway, a really cool company, just did a really cool thing, which for $75 a month, you can get 3 pieces of accessories, and you return them, and you get 3 more. So you don't even have to figure out what they are. You can build a cue if you want. So here's what could happen in education. 10 years from now, we could build a playlist like we do today for music, or a cue like we do for Netflix. We can say, I want the following classes from the following institutions or from the following companies, and I want to get the following skills and the following degrees. And we may be able to do it from our living room or our bedroom or our office, right? Where it's not going to be, I could get marketing from Northwestern if I wanted, or I can get coding from General Assembly or from Code Academy. And we'll get employers who'll say, I'm looking for somebody with the following skills, and they'll be matched. So it's possible that if institutions don't change, they will be replaced like Netflix has replaced things, like iTunes has replaced things. We no longer buy an album, we buy the song.
Yes, right? And I couldn't agree more with what you just said in terms of the thesis of what the future could look like, and I actually believe that's what the future will look like. I call it knowledge as a currency, which means that what matters is what you know, not where you go. It's about knowledge, not college. And people are going to be creating their own individualized knowledge portfolios that employers are going to be looking at, particularly the actually the skill set, not necessarily.
And we see it happening right now, by the way. That's right. Already happening.
Right. Well, I think that's.
But you're an investor, right?
Yeah.
So you were crazy enough to start writing checks in the education space when
to
nobody
Chegg.
else. Well, thank you for that. Like I
So
said, crazy.
full disclosure, we own over 1 million shares in Chegg. And
full disclosure, you look very handsome today.
We're going to look at a handsome right there.
So when you write checks,
yes,
right? When people write checks in the internet space, you have investors up here. What do they look for? They look for all the cool buzzwords. They look for platform. They look for SaaS. And we can buzzword everybody out. What do you look for in the education space?
Well, again, we're a broad growth investor. We invested in Twitter, we invested in Facebook, and Dropbox, and Spotify, and Lyft. But when we look at education, what got us excited about this space is that the classic investment opportunities, whether it's problem bigger the problem, bigger the opportunity, in a knowledge-based economy in a global marketplace, education is making a difference not only an individual does, but how a company does, and for that matter, how well a country does. What's changed and what creates an investable opportunity is historically education was sort of this incremental opportunity space, and now what you're seeing is what I call weapons of mass instruction. In other words, education models that are to be able to scale rapidly, and you can start seeing not just nice niche businesses. Chegg, under your leadership, has become certainly one of the largest education companies in the world.
Just to put it in scale size, and the public company can't disclose stuff, but our reach now is over 13 million students, which means we reach over 75% of all high school students intending to go to college, and we reach about 8 million college students. And we'll rent between 5 and 6 million textbooks this year, which is a decreasing part of our business. But just to put that in perspective, I mean, that's a business that didn't exist 4 years ago, and now we will do over 3.5 million transactions this year. That's students finding us on their own, and that's just one component of what we do.
And I think, again, those type of businesses didn't exist, and what you've done in the last 3 years, shows what can happen, and it's just beginning. And so that this whole idea of rapid scale is exciting, and this knowledge economy that we're in, and the fact that everybody's going to be a learner in the world. So companies, the technologies and strategies that address that issue, we think have ripe opportunity. We're investing in Coursera. They've gone from 0 to 8 million students in 2 years.
But interestingly enough, most of them outside the U.S.
70% outside the United States. And again, I think increasingly this isn't, it's a global world. And so what the internet does is it democratizes learning, increases access, lowers the cost, and we think is going to improve the quality. So we're very, very excited about these interesting models coming out. And I'll just add one other piece, and then let's get back into the dialogue, is what big data, which is another important trend that's going on, the ability to actually, on a real-time basis, show a teacher, a parent, a student what they're learning and be able to be prescriptive in terms of what they can be taken to help them be effective and optimize their opportunities. That's really exciting. So we're investing in a couple of big data companies that are involved in education, Newton in New York, to clear out here in Silicon Valley. So.
Yeah, look, and we'd love to engage you all if you have questions or comments on the same thing, because this affects all of us. So, what people don't understand is 15%, we'll come on just one second, 15% of the country is in higher education at any given point. And over 50% of them are failing out. And there's 4 million open jobs in this country and 2 million graduates every year, and we have 20% unemployment of graduates. So, I don't care, if you love your institution, like I love mine, or where my daughters go, the whole system is broken because it was designed for a world that no longer exists. And what amazes me is, and I'll just give you some statistics and we'll go to the question here, just things to ponder. We did a piece of research that we presented at Mike's conference at ASU. If you're interested in education, that's his premier conference. But if you were to ask students, employers, and educators who's responsible for giving the students the skills they need to get a job, here are the numbers. Only 17% of students think it's their responsibility. That's already a mistake. Only 34% of employers think it's their responsibility to give students the skills necessary to be successful in the jobs that they hire for. And 53% of professors, which means half of them don't think it's their responsibility at all, but 53% of them think that it is. But almost all of them feel that it's their responsibility to give you the long-term skills, not the skills necessary to get the first job. And so what we think can be fixed is putting the student first rather than the institution first, and giving students direct access to the things that can help them save time, save money, get smarter, which is what our mission is. And what we've been is overwhelmed by when we launch things. We launched a career site. We said, I got sick and tired of my daughter's friends asking me what I do for a living, right? Because I got to talk to all of them. And so it became clear that these kids don't even know what any of our jobs are. How are they going to go get them? How are they going to understand the skills? So we've got an internship site and a career services site. And in less than 6 months, in the summer, 400,000 students have already used it. So what the internet does is allow people to take control of their own destiny and their own lives. And that's what institutions aren't understanding. And that's what students are beginning to understand and wake up and do. And so I have high hopes for the kids in this country because they understand technology much more than their educators do. And so they're taking advantage of it. So you had a comment or a question?
Actually, sir, a question in the context of Stephen Sprague from Rivets. The question is, in today's world where we're starting to have the beginnings of mechanisms to pay for content, what's been interesting is we haven't actually seen that compensation exist in, for example, Khan Academy or Code Academy or any of these other mechanisms that might not only reward the people creating them, and so therefore, if the first person to make $100 million teaching 1 billion students, we have many more people in this room explaining why they have the world's greatest 3-minute commercial on how to solve a calculus problem. And so, can you talk a little bit about the transition from the advertising economy to a subscription economy in the internet, and the tools that might enable that, and might make that possible?
So I'll start because we offer some of those, and you're right. Let me explain what I mean by you're right. So Khan Academy is a brilliant thing. But you know what? In a lot of ways, it's exactly what current education system is. It's a single lecture that in a non-interactive, non-live environment video. You just watch it as often as you want. And they're awesome at educating, and they help people because you can do it at 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning. So, but it doesn't really change the paradigm of how to learn. Chegg has a product called Chegg Study, which is a homework help product. It's literally step-by-step solutions. And I can talk about it because it's in the context of what you're saying. Last year, because I don't blow any numbers, we had almost 500,000 students subscribe to get this homework help from a product and a company you never heard of, which is amazing to me. That's how much the pent-up demand is. If you look at companies like General Assembly, which is one of my favorite companies, which you can do classroom learning or online learning around certain skills, there are people making a lot of money. There are companies like Udemy, right, which is doing exactly what you said, which is sort of a Coursera, but it's a marketplace for classes. We just acquired an unbelievably cool company started by 2 Stanford kids called InstaEDU. It's the Uber for tutors, right? What does that mean? It means that you can find a tutor in any subject, at any time, in any language, anywhere in the world, instantly, and it's as little as 40 cents a minute. So we have 7,000 tutors in this network already for a company that started only 2 years ago that are making $20 an hour tutoring. And most of the tutors are professors or college students or graduate students who are like Uber. They're making money when they have time. They put their shingle up for 4 hours in a day. And so we're increasingly seeing what Khan Academy started, which is sort of free one-to-all, getting into personalized learning around specific subject matters, specific skills. So that is actually beginning to happen now, and we see it on Chegg all the time. When we acquired the company for a reason. One of them is when we just integrated it into our homework help product I was talking about. In 90 days, we sent them 72,000 leads. So there's pent-up demand, and people are willing to pay as long as it's what they want to learn. They're tired of paying for stuff they don't think will get them a job. And so that's the big change that we're seeing. So I agree with you.
Yeah, and just to, first on the payback, we call it a big trend or focus is what we call return on education, the educational outcome or impact that you have for taking a course or having a tutor. And I think ultimately, you know, this whole debate about not-for-profit, for-profit is kind of silly. It's really about, you know, what you have, when you take your time or you pay for something, you know, are you actually getting something for it? Return on education, ROE. But back to this model, which I think is really exciting. We talk about access a lot, which is an important part of the equation, how to transform the learning industry. But another piece is the best teachers, people that have the best subject matter experts, how you can create a model where they can get compensated for what they know in a material way, just like greatest professionals in other industries. So teachers pay teachers is another model, marketplace model. Wildly successful teachers have done really, really well by providing their content, their curriculum to other teachers.
Right. It's a marketplace for curriculum.
Yeah.
And what I love about teachers, and my mom was a public school teacher for 39 years, they're willing to commit their own time and their own money to improve their curriculum and education. But if you go back to what Mike was saying earlier and to your question, it is like the media business, which is if you can learn from somebody who's better able to teach you a subject that you want to know or need to know, will you pay for it? The answer is absolutely yes. And people are doing it all the time. It's the free stuff that will not sustain itself because just mentally we keep thinking to ourselves, if it's free, I don't have to complete the class. When we charge for things, the usage goes up. So it is beginning to happen. The internet makes it super easy.
So I'm just going to make another company to highlight only because I'm an investor in it and it would be remiss if I did. It's called Curious.com, which is another marketplace for knowledge. Justin Kitch, who's a great CEO, is running it. Again, I think a window to the type of models you're starting to see, where if I have something to share with the community, I can rapidly scale that into something that's rewarding for me.
So, my name is Francine Hardaway.
You got Google Glass, so we don't know who you're talking to now.
Oh, okay. I'm a geek. You probably can see that. But I taught a class in digital media education, digital media entrepreneurship at Arizona State University for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And I was trying to disrupt that class as best I could. And the university completely gets in the way. In other words, I didn't want to have classes because these are entrepreneurs, and never mind what I wanted to have. But my point is that the universities still have the credentialing monopoly, and my students still had to graduate, and if I still wanted to teach there, which I don't, I quit, but if I still wanted to teach there, there are certain rules that the universities are still having to follow in order to get their funding. So
well, it's an interesting comment because, ironically, Arizona State University is, most people don't know, is probably the most innovative university in the United States. So if that's an issue there.
And the largest with 72,000.
yeah, I mean, that's right. Michael Crow has tried to do everything he possibly can. But the funding formulas are all wrong.
Well, and again, I think one of the things that we talked about earlier is a shift of this kind of mindset that what you need, it's the credits that go to the degree that leads to the job opportunity. And I think while credits and degrees are not, I'm not saying that they're going to go away. I think they're going to be augmented and enhanced by other ways that people gain knowledge and get credibility, get credit, get ways that what they know is worth something.
So I think there's a moment in time, and I think if you go back to Mike's first question about the media industry, having been in computer magazines and being the first things to be disrupted by the internet, and which is why I ran ZDNet, which we disrupted ourselves. We said if someone's going to eat our own, it might as well be us. And it turned out to be a very good financial situation to do that. So our view is it's going to take time inside the institution because the institution is not prepared for it, funding is not prepared for it, professors are not prepared for it. And so one amazing example of what I've seen in an institution is where my daughters go. They go to Colgate University. They've set up an entrepreneur program. They've set up classes outside the classroom. They have something called Thought into Action, which now 120 students have applied to become entrepreneurs. They get funding for their companies from the school. But what they've done is they've made the Career Services Center have its own curriculum. And so what's happening is you're starting to get curriculum that may or may not have credit, but is endorsed and taught by the school. And students are flocking to it because they're learning the other skills that they need in addition to the liberal arts skills that they need. My view as running Chegg is I'm not going to wait for the institutions. We put the student first. So professors like you, your courses can be made available through Chegg, and because of big data, we know your college, we know your class, we know your textbook, we often know your grades, we often already have your credit card. We're able to match you. We're able to tell you the skills that you're getting. We're able to, if you come to the career site, tell you the skills that you're missing, and then we're able to match you with those skills. So what we're going to do is we're going to crack that code, because what I learned in Silicon Valley is this: if I walk around my offices, probably 40% of the people that work for us weren't born in this country. Not only were they not born in this country, they didn't go to school in this country. Not only didn't go to school in this country, they've gone to schools that I've never seen or never heard of. What I care about is, can they do the job? And over time, that's going to happen. But you need people to fight it now, because it's going to take years for the institution to move. And it's only out of desperation that they will.
Well, I figured out to fight from the outside.
Yeah, exactly right. We'll do both. So we have time for one more question? Yep.
How do the regular universities and colleges, this is Cyril Ryan from PIPNOW, so obviously the business model has to change for the current university system. How do they compete with this online models that are coming in? How do they need to change to be relevant?
Well, I think, sure, I'll go first and go to Dan. I think the key thing is they're going to have their eyes wide open, because to operate under the premise that they're going to be allowed to operate like they have for the past couple of 100 years, and they're going to get rolled over. So I think one thing is just a recognition that business as usual is not going to work. Second is to look at things and what they can do to kind of match up with what society says they need and what universities can provide. Universities are really good at getting subject matter experts and be able to do research and find ways to educate, but they do it to too far people at too high a cost. And it's not aligned necessarily with where careers are being created. They're not helping their students figure out how to create the kind of program for themselves that's going to be effective and create a return for themselves. So you're seeing models evolve. I think Coursera is partnering with institutions, and I think you're going to see interesting things develop there. 2U is another company we're an investor in that partners with universities to create high-quality online courses. And I think you're going to see all sorts of different ways that you're going to see it. But again, I will also make a prediction. There's 4,000 universities in the United States. I think in 10 years, I don't know if it's a third, I don't know if it's a quarter, but a number of them won't exist.
So I would add to what Mike said, which is institutions have to determine what their role is. Historically, there were fewer of them. There were a couple of super high quality ones. There was sort of this contract handshake agreement in America that those that went to the best institutions would hire those that went to other institutions. And because the world has changed, the economy has changed, technology has changed, the skills that you need has changed. We're not really talking about the top 100 schools, which may not be forced to change anytime in our lifetime, because their alumni are so wealthy. Their models are simple. You produce all these great people that make a lot of money, and they give the school a lot of money, and you can perpetuate it. It's the rest of us, right, that aren't at those schools that has to change. And I think, again, CBS is a great model, because their model was network advertising. And that model was going away, and they changed and became content creator, provider, and distributor. So if you're an institution in a world of multiple screens, where you can expand the number of people that you reach, not decrease them, you can reach further outside the U.S., not just within the U.S., where you're not competing with the same 7 schools every year for a fixed number of people, where you don't have to live. What the internet changed is the customer and the consumer becomes one. In higher education, the customer was the college, and the student was the consumer. Now the student is both, and they need to recognize that. The second thing is it gets rid of the importance of time and location. You no longer have to teach a class at 8 o'clock in the morning and only half the students can get in there, right? You have the ability to use technology. So there's a really cool company called Ranku, which has found that there's already 1,000 online degree-based classes from major colleges whose names we know. So it's beginning to happen, but I think they got to determine what they are. Right? Are they residential or are they not? Are they skills-based or are they not? Are they, what will they be known for, and how do they expand their student base, lower their actual cost per student, but increase the number of students dramatically? And I think the better institutions are beginning to take advantage of some of the companies that Mike mentioned, and beginning to distribute things through Chegg. So I have high hopes. I just don't have high hopes for the next few years, because they're going to experience what we've all experienced in our careers, which is sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug. And right now, they're the bug, right? And so we're and others are coming along and providing capabilities and alternatives. And the good thing is students don't have to wait. It's available to the student now. So I think we're out of time, so
Thank you.
Mike, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.